I think, again, a lot of educational examples. So I think every group has been quite influenced by experience at school and being measured at school. Some interesting perspectives on a feeling sometimes of measures that we face in our organisational lives, where you're filling in endless reams of paperwork and you really don't feel that they're giving a particular value, but you have to do it for a particular reason. And that sort of sense, I think we all felt that at times we're part of a system which makes us participate in performance management that we can't really see the purpose of. Some interesting perspectives on the way students respond to kind of measurement at the moment. And David's example was that students so anxious to know how they get a score, a sort of obsession with the process of getting the score. And I guess that undermines the kind of broader educational process in a big way. So that was an interesting area. There's so much I could cover. I mean, Pat talked a bit about appraisal, individual appraisal, mixed feelings about it, frustrations with a 360-degree feedback process that feels a bit like hard work, and that, being very honest, you sort of rush through it because you can't really see the value of it too well. On the other hand, an example as a chair of school governors of an Ofsted report that was incredibly helpful. And I think we were all a bit surprised at that, because Ofsted gets such a slating in the press, doesn't it? But as Pat's point was that there was no doubt that the assessment exercise got to areas, shone light on areas that she wouldn't have seen otherwise. I think that also came up in Julian's feedback about a system on looking at diabetes care. Was that in a practice, surgery, a GP practice, a sort of rather humbling experience where, having felt that the service was almost best in class, the feedback shone light on some horrendously poor service, which again, it would never have come to light without that feedback process. So I think there were quite a lot of examples from our group of mixed feelings about it. Some examples of it was very useful, and some examples of it really couldn't see the point of it. I think we then entered into a really interesting debate around politics, political systems, and ideology. And I don't particularly want to go there. I'm not sure I can argue all the points, but I think we got into some interesting stuff about, how do you, if leadership is important in an organisation, and I think were we all acknowledging it was? I'm not sure we were, but we were saying, how do you give honest feedback to leaders? How do you give, and we talked about the Bush administration, I talked about the example of, I worked for a while for Arthur Andersen, and it's never ceased to amaze me how an organisation that seemed so successful on so many fronts and did all the right things on ostensibly on performance management collapsed overnight for completely different reasons. Maybe I would say ethical reasons, maybe integrity, whatever, but what was it that they missed so badly? How serious was that? And we talked about government, we talked about how do you get honest feedback to government about how they're performing and the challenges. You talked about challenges in the States. I'm sure we all feel very much the same challenges in the UK. So quite a wide-ranging discussion. I found it very interesting. Don't know if anybody wants to add anything.
It's just what I wanted to add. Leslie mentioned trust, and I'm not sure that everybody understands. And that was something that I introduced into the conversation. I'm not sure that everybody understands what I meant by that. So what I really meant was that there's an issue about fairness in society in the way that things are done, and using numbers, using as a way of judging, takes the judgment away from individuals. So and it came up in terms of something that Kurt was talking about, working with people to develop in a performance management sense, not just using obvious measures, but working with them. And the problem there is that he might work with one person in one way and one person with another, but you've got to have a trust that he's actually going to behave fairly towards both individuals. Similarly, with organisations, you use measures. The NHS uses measures so as not to be seen, perhaps, to be being unfair and giving more to the north of England than the south, or whatever. So there's continually stuff like that going on with schools and with universities when you actually use examination systems. The key, you might say, well, if my professor thinks I've done a good job, just give me, just say you're a really good student. But there's so much scope for that being not a fair way of doing things. So I just was thinking that there is a sort of fairness issue here that actually works against allowing you to use things in a developmental way almost. And that's where the trust comes. If you trust, if there's an element of trust, then you get over that. I think that's.
Yeah.